Detective Sarah Lawson stood in the dimly lit office, her eye scanning the array of files strewn across the desk. The town had been rocked by a series of unsettling disappearances, each more puzzling than the last. John Miller, a respected businessman, had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a faint scent of his cologne and an uneasy silence that hung over the community. Sarah had seen her share of disappearances, but something about this case felt different. The pattern was too precise, too deliberate. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. Michael Reeves, a local journalist known for his relentless pursuit of stories, entered the room with a confident stride. He was a man of many faces, charming when it suited him, calculating when it didn't. Today, his demeanor was a mix of urgency and calm. "I hear you're looking into the Miller case," Michael said, his voice carrying a hint of curiosity. "I've been following the recent disappearances closely. Maybe I can help." Sarah studied him carefully. Michael's reputation for digging up dirt was well known, but his motives were often questionable. She needed to be cautious. "And what exactly do you know that could help in this case?" Michael took a seat across from her, spreading out a series of documents and photographs. "These are connections between the victims. All of them had ties to a local charity organization. It seems innocent enough, but I think there's more to it. This organization could be a front for something much darker." Sarah's interest was piqued. She had noted the charity's name in her investigation but hadn't found any significant leads. Michael's claim could either be a breakthrough or another wild goose chase. Meanwhile, in the shadows of her modest home on the outskirts of town, Emily Hart watched the news report about Miller's disappearance with a grim expression. Emily was a reclusive figure with a mysterious past, often shrouded in rumors and speculation. Her connection to the town was tenuous, but her presence was unsettling. She had a secret, one that was closely tied to the disappearances, but revealing it would come at a cost she wasn't ready to pay. As Sarah and Michael discussed the details, Emily paced her dimly lit living room, her mind racing with thoughts of the past. She had witnessed the cruel reality of the organization Michael mentioned and knew its sinister influence. She was not just a bystander, she had been part of a covert scheme that had now resurfaced with devastating consequences. In the midst of this, the town's fear and suspicion grew. Whispers of a possible serial kidnapper circulated, and trust within the community eroded. Sarah faced mounting pressure to solve the case quickly, but the more she uncovered, the more tangled the web of deceit became. Michael's offer of help was both a blessing and a curse. His information could potentially lead to a breakthrough, but it also carried risks. Sarah had to navigate this precarious situation carefully, balancing her skepticism with the need to act on credible leads. As she prepared to delve deeper into the charity organization, she couldn't shake the feeling that the case was more complex than it appeared. Emily, too, was caught in a dangerous game of survival. Her knowledge of the organization's dark dealings was a double-edged sword. While it offered her a chance to come clean, it also put her in the crosshairs of those who wanted to keep their secrets buried. As the investigation progressed, she realized that her fate was intricately linked to the outcomes of Sarah's quest for the truth. The town's once peaceful facade was cracking under the pressure of the unfolding mystery. With each passing day, the sense of dread grew stronger, and Sarah knew that finding the missing individuals was just the beginning. The real challenge lay in unraveling the hidden motives behind their disappearance and confronting the dark forces at play. Sarah Lawson's investigation was beginning to reveal a troubling pattern. Each victim's ties to the charity organization were not just coincidental, they hinted at a deeper, more sinister connection. The charity, once celebrated for its philanthropy, seemed to be a front for illicit activities. Sarah's suspicion grew as she pored over the evidence, linking the missing persons to a network of secret dealings and shadowy figures. Michael Reeves, eager to prove his worth, provided Sarah with a trove of documents he had been collecting. "This organization," he said, pointing to the files, "is involved in much more than just charitable work. They've been linked to money laundering, illegal arms trading, and even human trafficking. The disappearances could be tied to these operations." Sarah scrutinized the files, noting discrepancies and suspicious transactions. The charity's financial records were rife with anomalies, and several key figures associated with the organization had criminal backgrounds. Despite Michael's impressive research, Sarah couldn't fully trust him. His relentless pursuit of the story often crossed ethical lines, and she wondered if his involvement in the investigation was driven by personal gain rather than a genuine desire to help. Meanwhile, Emily Hart's unease deepened. She had lived in isolation for years, but the current events forced her out of the shadows. Her past involvement with the charity was something she could no longer ignore. Emily had once been a part of the organization's covert operations, but she had left when things began to spiral out of control. Her knowledge of the group's inner workings was dangerous, and she feared that her own secrets would come to light. Emily's paranoia grew as she noticed unfamiliar faces lingering around her home. It became clear that someone was watching her, but she couldn't tell if it was the police, reporters, or someone more dangerous. Her fear was compounded by the knowledge that revealing what she knew could have fatal consequences. The organization had its own methods of dealing with threats, and Emily had seen firsthand how ruthless they could be. Sarah's investigation led her to a series of meetings with individuals who had been involved with the charity. These interviews revealed unsettling details about the organization's operations. Many of the witnesses were reluctant to speak, their fear palpable. Those who did provide information spoke in hushed tones, as if the very act of talking about the charity could bring unwanted attention. Michael, in his relentless pursuit of the truth, began to push boundaries. He started digging into Sarah's personal history, hoping to find something that could undermine her credibility. His actions were both reckless and invasive, and Sarah found herself questioning his true motives. Despite this, she could not ignore the valuable information he had provided. The connections between the charity and the disappearances were becoming clearer, but the bigger picture remained elusive. As Sarah continued her investigation, she uncovered a disturbing pattern: each missing person had been involved in a high-stakes game of deceit. The charity's leadership used them as pawns in a dangerous game of power and manipulation. The more Sarah learned, the more she realized that the case was not just about solving a series of disappearances, but about dismantling a deeply entrenched criminal network. Emily, now fully aware of the gravity of the situation, decided to confront her past. She reached out to Sarah anonymously, hoping to provide crucial information without revealing her identity. The risk of exposure was immense, but Emily knew that she had to act if she wanted to protect herself and potentially save the remaining victims. She left a cryptic message for Sarah, hinting at hidden files and secret meetings. As Sarah read the message, she felt a mix of hope and frustration. The information could be a breakthrough, but it was also a puzzle piece that needed to be placed correctly. With each passing day, the pressure mounted. The town was growing increasingly anxious, and Sarah knew that the longer the investigation dragged on, the more dangerous it became. The stakes were high, and Sarah, Michael, and Emily were each playing a perilous game. Trust was a rare commodity, and each had their own agenda. As the investigation moved forward, the lines between truth and deception blurred, leaving Sarah to navigate a treacherous path in her quest for justice. The tension in the town was palpable as Sarah Lawson delved deeper into the intricate web of deceit surrounding the charity organization. The more she uncovered, the clearer it became that the disappearances were not random acts of violence, but carefully orchestrated events linked to the charity's darker side. Each new revelation seemed to confirm that the organization was involved in a network of illegal activities far more extensive than anyone had initially suspected. Sarah's focus was drawn to a series of financial transactions that pointed to significant irregularities. Hidden accounts and shell companies were used to funnel money from the charity into various illicit enterprises. It appeared that the organization was not merely a facade but a central hub in a vast criminal operation. Sarah knew she needed more concrete evidence to bring down the network, but the deeper she dug, the more obstacles she faced. Michael Reeves, despite his questionable methods, had provided valuable insights into the charity's operations. He had uncovered links between the organization and several criminal figures who had previously managed to evade the law. Michael's revelations were compelling, but his approach to the investigation raised concerns. He seemed more interested in the story's sensational aspects than in the pursuit of justice, which made Sarah wary of his true intentions. Meanwhile, Emily Hart's situation grew increasingly precarious. Her decision to reach out to Sarah anonymously had been driven by desperation. The cryptic message she had left hinted at critical information but offered no clear path to access it. Emily had hidden her past well, but the weight of her secrets was becoming unbearable. She had witnessed the organization's brutal tactics firsthand, and her fear of retaliation kept her from coming forward openly. One evening, Sarah received an encrypted email containing a set of files that matched the description of the ones Emily had mentioned. The files included detailed records of the charity's transactions, a list of key figures involved in the organization, and several disturbing photographs. Among the documents was a diary belonging to one of the missing persons, revealing their involvement in the organization's illicit activities and hinting at a deep-rooted conspiracy. Sarah realized that the diary contained a crucial piece of the puzzle, the hidden meeting place where the charity's leaders convened to plan their operations. The location, described vaguely in the diary, was an old warehouse on the outskirts of town. Sarah decided to investigate the warehouse, hoping it might provide the breakthrough she needed. The warehouse was a vast, dilapidated structure with a sense of foreboding. As Sarah explored the dark, empty rooms, she found evidence of recent activity, discarded documents, empty crates, and faint traces of surveillance equipment. It was clear that the warehouse had been used for something more than storage. Sarah's heart raced as she realized that she was closing in on a critical lead. As she examined the evidence, Sarah received a phone call from Michael. He claimed to have information about a planned meeting between the charity's leaders and a notorious criminal syndicate. Michael's source was anonymous, and he was hesitant to share details, but he insisted that it was crucial for Sarah to be there. Despite her reservations about Michael's reliability, Sarah decided to attend the meeting. She hoped it would provide further insight into the organization's operations and lead her to the missing persons. Emily, on the other hand, was struggling to keep her emotions in check. Her fear of being discovered grew with each passing day, and she began to experience paranoia. She had started receiving threatening messages from unknown sources, and her attempts to find a safe way out of the situation were met with increasing difficulty. Emily knew that revealing her identity could jeopardize the entire investigation, but the pressure was mounting. The night of the meeting arrived, and Sarah prepared herself for a dangerous encounter. She arrived at the location, a secluded warehouse similar to the one she had previously explored. The atmosphere was tense as she entered the building, her senses on high alert. Michael was already there, waiting with a hidden camera to document the proceedings. Sarah's heart pounded as she tried to blend into the shadows, her focus on uncovering the truth. Inside the warehouse, Sarah witnessed a covert exchange between high-ranking members of the charity and representatives of the criminal syndicate. The conversation revealed the extent of the organization's involvement in illegal activities and their plans to expand their operations. Sarah's presence went unnoticed as she recorded the meeting, but the information she gathered was explosive. As Sarah left the warehouse, she knew she had gathered enough evidence to take down the charity and its criminal connections. However, the danger was far from over. The more she uncovered, the more she realized that the investigation was far from complete. With the truth coming to light, Sarah, Michael, and Emily each faced their own battles against a powerful and ruthless adversary. The investigation had reached a critical juncture. The stakes were higher than ever, and the path to justice was fraught with peril. Sarah's resolve to bring the perpetrators to account remained unshaken, but the road ahead promised to be fraught with challenges and risks. The revelation of the charity's criminal ties had set off a series of events that threatened to unravel the carefully constructed facade of respectability. With the warehouse meeting documented and the evidence in hand, Sarah Lawson felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that bringing down the organization would require careful planning and unwavering determination. The stakes were higher than ever, and the potential fallout from the investigation loomed large. As Sarah prepared to act on the information she had gathered, she was approached by Michael Reeves. He appeared unusually anxious, his typically confident demeanor replaced by an uneasy, almost frantic air. "We need to talk," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I have something important to tell you, but you need to be prepared for the worst." Sarah's instincts told her that Michael was hiding something. She agreed to meet him in a secluded location, away from prying eyes. When they were alone, Michael revealed a shocking truth: he had been feeding Sarah false information for months. His goal had been to manipulate the investigation for his own gain, using Sarah's progress to further his own story. "I never intended for things to get this far," Michael confessed. "I was just trying to get the scoop of a lifetime. But now I realize how deep this goes. The charity isn't just a front, it's part of a much larger operation. And the real danger is far from over." Sarah was stunned. The betrayal stung, and she felt a mix of anger and disbelief. She had relied on Michael's information, and now she questioned everything he had told her. Despite the betrayal, Sarah knew she had to remain focused. The evidence she had collected was crucial, and she needed to find a way to expose the organization without falling victim to Michael's deceit. Meanwhile, Emily Hart faced her own crisis. Her fears had materialized into reality when she received a threatening note, warning her to stay silent or face dire consequences. The note was a grim reminder of the danger she was in, and Emily knew she could no longer hide. She decided to take a drastic step to protect herself and to assist Sarah in any way she could. Emily reached out to Sarah through a secure channel, revealing her identity and offering crucial information about the organization's internal operations. She provided details about the key figures involved, their hidden agendas, and the extent of their criminal activities. Emily's decision to come forward was driven by a mix of desperation and a desire for redemption. Sarah arranged a meeting with Emily, who arrived visibly shaken but determined. The conversation was tense as Emily shared her knowledge, revealing connections between the charity's leadership and powerful criminal syndicates. She also disclosed that Michael had been involved in manipulating the investigation from the beginning, working with the organization to ensure its continued success. The new information was both a revelation and a challenge. Sarah had to reassess her strategy, now knowing that the organization was even more deeply entrenched than she had previously realized. The involvement of powerful criminal figures meant that any attempt to bring down the charity would be met with fierce resistance. Sarah had to be meticulous in her approach, ensuring that every move was calculated and every action was backed by solid evidence. As Sarah and Emily worked together to plan their next steps, they were confronted by an unexpected twist. A trusted ally within the police force, someone Sarah had relied on for support, was revealed to be complicit in the organization's schemes. The betrayal was a harsh blow, and it became clear that the corruption within the town was deeper than anyone had anticipated. With their plans in disarray, Sarah and Emily faced mounting pressure. The organization's leaders were growing increasingly desperate to protect their interests, and their methods became more ruthless. The town was on edge, and the atmosphere was charged with fear and suspicion. Sarah decided to move forward with a coordinated effort to expose the organization. She enlisted the help of journalists, whistleblowers, and law enforcement officials who were not compromised by the corruption. The goal was to launch a simultaneous operation that would target the charity's leadership and their criminal network. As the operation unfolded, Sarah and Emily watched from the sidelines, their roles crucial but fraught with danger. The raid on the charity's headquarters was intense, with law enforcement clashing with the organization's hired enforcers. The violence was stark, and the situation was volatile. In the midst of the chaos, Michael made one final attempt to salvage his reputation. He attempted to contact Sarah, offering a last-minute tip that could be pivotal in securing the organization's downfall. His motives remained questionable, but Sarah decided to consider the information. The risks were high, but the chance to secure a decisive victory against the organization was worth it. The climax of the operation was a dramatic showdown. The charity's leaders were apprehended, and the extent of their criminal activities was laid bare for the world to see. The evidence Sarah had gathered played a key role in securing convictions and dismantling the organization's network. As the dust settled, Sarah, Emily, and Michael faced the aftermath of their choices. The town began to heal from the shock of the revelations, but the scars would remain. Sarah's commitment to justice had prevailed, but the journey had taken a toll. The final betrayal was a harsh reminder of the complexities of trust and the price of uncovering the truth. The aftermath of the charity's downfall left the town in a state of fragile recovery. The truth had been exposed, and the powerful network behind the organization had been dismantled, but the cost had been significant. Sarah Lawson, Emily Hart, and Michael Reeves were left to deal with the consequences of their actions and the fallout from the case. Sarah's role in the investigation was both celebrated and scrutinized. Her relentless pursuit of justice had brought the perpetrators to account, but it also drew criticism for the methodical approach she had taken. The town's residents were divided in their opinions, some praising her bravery, while others questioned her decisions and the sacrifices made along the way. Emily, now publicly known for her involvement in exposing the organization, faced a complex path to redemption. Her decision to come forward had been pivotal in bringing the truth to light, but it also made her a target for those who had once controlled the criminal network. Despite her newfound visibility, she struggled with the lingering fear of retribution and the challenge of rebuilding her life after years of secrecy. Michael Reeves, once a key player in the investigation, found himself grappling with the consequences of his actions. His initial motives had been driven by ambition and a desire for personal gain, but his involvement in the case had taken unexpected turns. The revelation of his manipulations had tarnished his reputation, and he faced a period of reflection and reckoning. Michael's attempt to salvage his career by offering crucial tips had earned him a modicum of redemption, but the damage to his credibility was significant. The town began to heal, with efforts focused on rebuilding trust and addressing the impact of the scandal. The charity's remaining assets were redirected to genuine causes, and measures were implemented to prevent similar abuses in the future. The legal system worked to ensure that those responsible for the criminal activities faced justice, and the town slowly began to regain a sense of normalcy. Sarah took a step back from the spotlight, choosing to focus on her work and personal life. The case had been a defining moment in her career, but it also underscored the complexities of pursuing justice in a world fraught with deception and corruption. She remained committed to her principles, but was mindful of the lessons learned from the investigation. Emily's journey toward a new life was one of cautious optimism. She sought to use her experience to advocate for victims of crime and to support efforts to prevent similar abuses. Her courage in coming forward had not been in vain, and she hoped to make a positive impact on the community. Michael, though scarred by the experience, resolved to rebuild his career with a renewed sense of purpose. He aimed to pursue stories with integrity and to make amends for his past actions. The road ahead was uncertain, but he was determined to find a path to redemption. As the dust settled, the echoes of justice reverberated through the town. The investigation had exposed deep-seated corruption and had brought about significant change. The sacrifices made by Sarah, Emily, and Michael had paved the way for a new chapter, one marked by a commitment to truth and a determination to prevent future wrongs. In the end, the case had been a testament to the power of perseverance and the complexities of seeking justice. The lives affected by the investigation were forever changed, but the resolution offered a glimmer of hope for a better future. The town, though scarred, began to rebuild, and the lessons learned from the ordeal served as a reminder of the importance of vigilance and integrity in the face of adversity.